Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of My Favorite Games. Today I'm going to be playing Mortal Kombat on the Sega Genesis and the Sega CD today, both of those platforms. Now, Mortal Kombat is one of the biggest games of all time for me personally. Huge, huge game. And actually, I'm going to pause for just a second here while I enter this blood code for the Genesis version. A-B-A-C, A-B-B. There we go. Now we got the authentic experience. Alright, so as I was saying, Mortal Kombat, huge game for me, and I want to talk about just how huge it was for me back then when it came out, and I'll kind of talk for a bit before I actually start playing the game here. But Mortal Kombat has a lot to do with why I'm a big fan of fighting games now, and video games in general, really. This was kind of one of the first games that I really just kind of obsessed over and got crazy about. I had been playing video games for years before this, but this one just, I don't know, it captured my my interest in a way that I feel like few games had even come close to doing before that. So if we go back to 93, this would have been early 93, probably around like March or April, something like that, springtime. The first time I ever saw this game, I was 12 years old, and I was at UW Parkside, University in Kenosha, Wisconsin, for some bike racing or cycling races, right? And on the bottom floor, the bottom level at the time, I think underneath their, what was their cafeteria, they had an arcade. And I had found my way down there, and, you know, where there were video games, I was going to find myself, right? So I went down there to check out what they had. And I saw this just unreal looking game down there where these guys were punching each other and blood was flying out of their mouths and stuff, and there was this just crazy violence. The guy was throwing a spear through another guy and then yanking him across the screen and yelling at him, you know, get over here. And they all look so real, you know, they all look like real people in this video game, and I'd never seen anything like that before. I had seen tons of video games before, but nothing with like these digitized characters. This was like the first one like that, I think, that I'd ever seen, at least in person. So to go from games like Final Fight was a huge one for me, right? Big fan of that. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, you know, huge fan of that game as well. That was another big one around that time for me. And then to make the leap to something like this where it looked like you were controlling people and they were just doing crazy stuff to each other, it blew my 12-year-old mind, right? So of course I went and got quarters and ran back down there and played that game, and I don't think I was very good at it. I totally got my butt handed to me by the computer, but I think I remember getting knocked into the bottom of the pit for the first time by the computer, and it just was like more than I could like handle. It just blew me away. It was like, oh my god, did you see that? He fell all the way down there. There's spikes down there, and there are bodies and stuff. Holy crap! Just blew my mind, my 12-year-old mind. And I never forgot that, right? I was telling my dad on the drive home about this crazy game that they had down there on the bottom level, and I'm sure that as he heard me talk about it, he just probably chalked a lot of it up to, you know, young kids telling tall tales and exaggerating everything, right? You know, like, oh, you just like punch this guy's head right off, Dad. You had to see it. You just like punch his head right off. And then like blood is squirting everywhere and stuff. You know, I'm sure my dad was probably just thinking like, yeah, okay, you know. And he had seen a lot of video games. He was the reason that we had video games in the house. Not because he was a big game player or anything, really. He did appreciate having like cutting edge tech in the house, I think, but he knew how much I love video games, and he'd seen quite a few of them that I'd played over the years. I think he was familiar at least with all of them that we were buying up to that point, just as he was doing his due diligence as a parent, right? But yeah, that game just rocked my world, and I hadn't forgot about it, and we went back home, and I didn't have a reason to go back down to that Parkside campus for, you know, another year. I wasn't going to be back there until like the following spring. I was just thinking about you know, how much I wanted to see that game again. So back home in Green Bay at the time, we had a mall that hadn't yet died, and it had an arcade in it. I went there one day. I went there with some of my friends, and I was supposed to like go get a pair of jeans or something, so I'd have an extra pair of jeans because school, or for the summer I think it was. I don't remember. I just remember I was there to buy jeans, and they had the arcade there, and sure enough, Mortal Kombat was there in that arcade, and I was like, oh my god, you guys, that's the game. That's the game that I saw that I told you guys about, you know. So my friends and I go over to check it out, and you know, like every other kid in the arcade, we're just like completely enamored with it, you know. It was like the thing that we would talk about for the rest of the day, the rest of the week, you know, wishing that we could play that at home. So anyway, fast forward, right? Just to kind of, I tell you all that stuff. One, I guess, because it's fun to reminisce, but two, also to give you an idea of like the impact that it made on me the first time I saw it, and how seeing it again out there in the wild some weeks later was like this you know, incredible moment of like I thought maybe I wouldn't see this thing again, but there it is, and I can, you know, it's not that far away. I can come here and play it again later, you know. So anyway, fast forward to like June or yeah, about roughly June, I think. I'm in the grocery store with my dad, and we walk by the magazine aisle, and there is an issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly. And what do you know? It's got Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Goro, and I think Kano all on the cover. Can't remember if anyone else was on the cover. I remember those guys on the cover, and I knew right away, oh, that's that game. That's that game in the arcade. So yeah, okay, this is a thing that's catching on, and you know, it said on the cover like Mortal Kombat comes home. And my eyes must have been as big as dinner plates, you know. I couldn't believe, oh my god, that game's coming home. That game's gonna come to home systems. I'll have that in my house, you know. So I picked up the magazine. I'm looking through it and everything, and was just, you know, there was the news right there. It was coming to Super Nintendo, Genesis, Game Boy, and Game Gear. I can't remember if it came to any other systems at that time. I think it was just those four. But anyway, my dad didn't get the magazine for me at the store for whatever reason. I think I remember asking him for it, and he said no. I don't know. We weren't totally made of money, so I don't hold it against him or anything. But I came back like a week later. I had earned $5 somehow. I don't remember how I got the money or whatever. I did some work, I'm sure. And I had $5 in my pocket. So the first thing I did was get on my bike and ride it to the grocery store, make a beeline for that magazine rack. There was the issue still sitting there. They had a couple of them. I picked it up, ran to checkout, bought it. It didn't even cost the full $5. I had like $1 or $2 extra left over. And as far as I was concerned, like I had no use for that money anymore, right? It's just like, what a dumb kid moment, I guess. I could have bought, you know, a candy bar or something, or a soda, who knows, right? I could have given that money back to my dad, or just held on to it for later, whatever. But as I was leaving, there was a guy that was collecting money for veterans just outside of the store. He was right next to the door where you go in, and he had like a little bucket where you were, you know, putting your money or whatever. And I just remember walking by that and thinking, oh, perfect, just give it to him. Good enough. I got my thing. He can get, you know, he can have my change. Just like put it in there, didn't even give it a second thought. And as I'm getting on my bike to just get out of there, like seriously lay rubber in the parking lot and tear ass home so I can go read my magazine cover to cover and stare at the pages endlessly, I remember the guy calling out like, young man, you forgot your sticker. You know, I guess if you donate, there was like some kind of sticker that they were giving you. And I just remember shouting back over my shoulder, I don't need it, you know, hurriedly pedaling my ass off to get back home with my magazine so I could read all about Mortal Kombat coming home. So that's that story. Another thing real quick, just to kind of talk about it, Mortal Monday, the whole Mortal Monday thing was a big deal. Video games now, it's 2017 as I'm doing this video here. It's not a big deal at all. It's a common thing for a game to have a release date, for retailers to know about it like months in advance, and you know, now we have a website where, you know, whatever, you know, The Legend of Zelda is going to be coming out, you know, coming soon. This is a placeholder page. We don't have a release date yet for it, you know, but you can pre-order it if you want, you know, that kind of thing. All of that stuff, or rather none of it, was around back when Mortal Kombat was first coming out. You know, it was not common, and at least to my memory of the time, it was not common for retailers to know when a game was going to come out or something. Like, you might have one knowledgeable guy working at the store who would, like, maybe look it up or knew something, you know, like Mortal Kombat was coming. But for the most part, you go to a store and you'd be like, you know, do you know when Mortal Kombat's coming out? And your response you'd get from the employee would be, what combat now? You know, boy, what are you talking about? What game are you looking for? I don't know. Is it on the shelf? If it's on the shelf, we got it. You know, that was the way video games were sold back then. So to have this date set, September 13th, Mortal Monday, 1993, like, the countdown was on, right? It started showing up in, like, the every single gaming magazine. It was either in the magazine or on the back cover. And I remember I was reading comic books back then. I was a huge X-Men fan. So I'd be going to the comic book store and like, just about, gosh, I don't know, well over half the comics on the rack had to have had that Mortal Monday advertisement on the back cover. You could just pick up a random comic book and check the back of it, and there'd be the picture of all the people standing in the street with the Mortal Kombat dragon logo, and it would just say, like, prepare yourself, Mortal Monday, September 13th, right? So everybody knew it was coming. So, you know, that was a big deal. It was like the first game I can remember that had a release date like that, where you knew about it ahead of time and you were counting down to it, you know? Nobody was doing pre-orders or any of that stuff back then. Like, it was totally different. So this felt like a huge event as a result, you know, in a way that games did not feel that way back then. And outside of like a platform launching, you know, like knowing that the Super Nintendo was going to come out on this day, or that the Sega CD was going to come out on this day, or whatever. So yeah, it was huge, and everybody that I knew, you know, that was going to my school that was into video games knew about Mortal Kombat. Beyond huge for the time. So as we're getting closer to Mortal Monday, this is the weekend beforehand, right? So I think it's actually Friday, and then you're gonna have Saturday, Sunday, and then that Monday is Mortal Monday, right? So back up to the Friday before. I'm starting to get antsy, and I know about this game. Oh, I should back up even further, actually. Sometime right before that, and I can't remember when exactly, my dad and I found out that the Super Nintendo version of the game wasn't going to have the blood or the arcade perfect fatalities. Well, not perfect, but, you know, they weren't going to have the bloody, gory fatalities and stuff, or the blood. So, knowing that about the Super Nintendo, and knowing that the Genesis version was going to have all that stuff, we sold the Super Nintendo without a second thought. You know, I remember my dad and I laughing about it, thinking, like, who wants the baby version of that game? You know, like, let's get the real version. You know, so we did that. We had a Genesis at that point, right? So anyway, it's the Friday beforehand, and I'm getting antsy for the game to come out. Monday can't come soon enough. I got to make it through the whole freaking weekend before it's finally Monday. And then I can get out of school that day, and my dad can take me to the store, and we can pick up a copy of Mortal Kombat, and then my life is complete at that point, right? So I start calling around stores to ask who's going to have it on Monday, right? Just to check and make sure which store is going to have it, how much are they going to charge for it, because I don't think pricing was standard at stores back then the way it is now. You'd have some stores that would charge, you know, $5 more than another store, or even $10 more than another store for a copy of a game. So I wanted to know who was going to have it and how much it was going to be, and try to figure out what's the best place for us to go for it. So when I called KB Toys in the mall, the employee told me that they were already selling it. He was like, oh yeah, no, we're selling Mortal Kombat now, today. I'm like, what? What happened to Mortal Monday? You know, and the guy explained to me that I guess somehow they got wind of a store in the Chicago area that had begun selling their copies of Mortal Kombat just the day before. So I guess when they opened shop that day on Friday, they got that news, and then all hell breaks loose, and they can just start selling their copies now because they don't want to lose sales to a store that's literally 3.5 hours south. Which sounds so ridiculous, right? Like, oh, we don't want to lose business to that place down there. But I mean, then again, I don't know. I guess they figure if one place is selling it, maybe more places are going to sell it. So if they're not waiting, why the hell should we wait to potentially sit longer on these copies? So, okay, wow, I'm worked up into a complete fervor now, right? Like, the game is out, people are buying it right now, like, people are taking it home today on Friday. So I'm in a panic. I go and I run and tell my dad, I'm like, Dad, and he's in the shower, right? I think he had just gotten home from work. It's got to be maybe like 3 in the afternoon or something like that. And he's in the shower, and his son bursts in there, and I'm bugging the hell out of him for, Dad, they're selling it now at KB Toys in the mall. And he's like, really? Well, okay, well, I guess, we can go, and if they're selling them like you say they are, then we'll pick one up. But otherwise, if they don't have it, we'll just go on Monday. I think maybe part of him maybe didn't believe me. I don't know. My memory's a little fuzzy, but for some reason the deal was if we went and they had a copy, we would buy it. But it was also supposed to be very clear to me that if they didn't have a copy, we weren't going to drive all over town looking for one. We were just going to wait till Monday and then try again. So I'm like, okay, Dad. I run out of the bathroom. I go back to the phone. I don't even miss a beat. I just dial up KB Toys immediately again, and I ask them. I'm like, hey, can you put a copy of Mortal Kombat on hold if I can make it there, later for it? And he's like, well, how soon? And I was like, I don't know, in the next hour maybe. Just totally pulled that out of my ass. I had no idea what time we were gonna go to the mall. I just knew we were gonna go. He's like, well, I'm down to my last copy. I'm like, oh my God, your last copy. I begged this guy on the phone, just totally shamelessly begged him to hold it for me. So I think maybe sensing the terror and urgency in my voice, he agrees to it. So he puts it on hold. He's like, okay, I got my last copy on Genesis waiting here for Andrew. So whenever you come by today to get it, it'll be here. Okay, great. So my dad takes me to the mall. We go, and I go right up to the counter. And I said to the clerk, do you have any copies of Mortal Kombat? And he's like, I've just got one that's on hold for somebody. And I'm like, yeah, I'm Andrew. And my dad looks at me like, oh, so you called and put this on hold, huh? After I told you that we were going to just see if they had any, But it was the last copy, and I think that my dad understood the situation here, and that, I wasn't just making all this up as an excuse to go check and see if they were selling it, but that I'd actually done the work and made sure. So we got the copy. I got my last copy, or the last copy, which was my copy on the Sega Genesis. And I was just over the moon, I remember driving home and holding the case in my hand, looking on the back of it, seeing all the screenshots, and oh man, there's a picture of the character select screen. It's got all the characters, and oh, there's Scorpion doing his fatality move. It's got that. It's got everything. This is it. This is the thing that I played. This is the arcade game, and I'm gonna have this at home now. Just totally over the moon about it. So. That's my story. That's me recalling the acquisition of Mortal Kombat on the Sega Genesis. I hope you got a kick out of that. It was fun for me to kind of recall that time. It was such a fun time, man, when this came out. And going to school on Monday and telling kids that were there who didn't know about all this, they didn't realize that stores had been selling it over the course of the weekend. Some of them had no idea. They were still waiting for Monday, and I was out in front of it. Apparently, I didn't invite anybody over to play it. I was just a little bastard and sat home and played it by myself all weekend, I guess. I don't know. But, yeah, telling them that I had it already, that I got the game on Mortal Friday, was a really cool feeling. So, yeah. Anyway, why don't we get into playing the Genesis version here. I've got my blood code entered already, ready to do this thing. Now there's a cheat code that, or a cheat menu that you can access. Remember the code is Dullard, so down, up, left, left, A, right, down. Cheats enabled. And I think flag 2 is what you need for the shadows to appear in front of the moon so that you get to fight Reptile. And I don't remember what any of these other flags do, so I'm gonna ignore those for now. And go to options. Let's keep it on easy, because yes, I'm a giant wimp now. I don't have the skills that I used to have playing this when I was a little kid, so I'm just gonna stick with easy mode. Call me a baby, it's fine. I don't even care. So first thing I'll call out here for the Genesis version, and these were things I was noticing when I was a kid and I got it home, right? Like as thrilled as I was to have this at home, I couldn't help but notice the little differences. You'll notice the fight stance here, the little animation isn't a complete loop, it's like a part of the loop, and then it like stops midway through and then goes in reverse and then starts up again.
Fight.
You'll be able to compare that to the Sega CD version when we're playing that a little bit later. Also, the sound effects are way less impactful than the arcade version too. But you know, for the most part, this was Mortal Kombat at home, and it was cool because you could, you know, uppercut a guy and see blood go flying all over the place and all that. Let's see if I can do Kano's stupid ball move. I can't seem to get it off there.
Finish him.
I forgot Kano's fatality. I don't remember it. I didn't even mean to pick Kano. He was just a good guy to kind of demonstrate the shortened fight or stance animation. There we go. I found the words. Kano was the first guy that I tried in the arcade too, because I thought he kind of looked like the Terminator with his half metal face and red eye. Being a huge Arnold fan back in the day, Terminator fan, that was immediately appealing to me about him. But he's actually turned out to be like one of my least favorite characters. I don't care for his moveset that much.
Finish him.
Hey, somehow I pulled off his fatality. I just kind of took a wild guess. That's cool. Got to see it. Beating hard there. Some other little things that I noticed back then. So watch the life bars up in the top of the screen. The names are actually above the life bars, whereas the arcade version, they're in like a green font and they're inside the life bar. Is it like a yellow font? I think it's a yellow font and it's inside the life bar. And it just kind of looks cooler. It's got a little more personality than just like some white text. The white text makes it look like one of those blues here. Got the uppercut off. There we go. Oh, it's forward, back, 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 low punch. Got it. Rip hearts all day. I was gonna say the white text above the life bar just kind of looks a little I don't know, definitely less stylish. Just sort of cheesy. Break the wood there.
Fight.
Here we are at the pit stage. I can almost guarantee I will not get double flawless. Not with Kano anyway. Uh-oh, uh-oh. Definitely gonna lose.
Fight.
Another little thing about that's different about this version, when fight comes up on the screen, it doesn't flash, it's just that solid red color Whereas I know the arcade version, it definitely flashes colors. I think Finish Him does too. Also, the pit, as cool as that is, no bodies at the bottom of it, which was something that I definitely noticed, because I remember the first time I ever saw the pit, I remember seeing the other bodies that were down there, and there was one stuck on one of the pillars that has the spikes kind of protruding outward, and he was definitely missing. So yeah, I remember thinking, well, at least you can still knock guys down there, but it would have been really cool if they would have had the bodies down there too, but oh well. Made that look easy. I guess I can't gloat too much though, I am playing on easy mode.
Fight!
There we go. Just having a hard time getting this slide off there. And every time you see me do a sweep from really far away, you know I've blown it. Sorry, Liu Kang. Oh, so speaking of differences between the arcade and home, notice Liu Kang's head there. The spine looks like it's hanging out of his mouth there. But the head is pointed to the side. It's just that they took the image from his fight stance and then just moved it across the screen, right, like above Sub-Zero's hand, and then had the spine hanging down from it. The arcade version, you've actually got the head turned to face the player, right? It's facing outward, which is kind of cool. It makes it look more like an actual ripped head. Scorpion's kicking my ass here.
Excellent.
Let's see if I can repeat that. There we go. Another little thing that I noticed, a little difference.
Fight!
This stage, there's no... I want to say that the arcade version has maybe some blood. If you notice up by where the hands of that skeleton are chained to the wall, you can see there's like some gray color where it looks like stuff has dripped down. For whatever reason, I think that should be red in the arcade version, but it's gray in this for some reason. Also, there are no bones or body parts laying around in the front of the screen in the foreground, so that's also missing.
Fight!
And the little sound sample of the voice in the fight reminds me. I'm not sure exactly how many voice samples this has, but I know it doesn't have as many as the arcade does, or even the Sega CD version, right? There's fight. I know if you get an uppercut, sometimes you can say excellent. And then, of course, they do finish him. He doesn't say finish her, though.
Fight!
And I'll demonstrate that in this fight here, I think. Hopefully I don't lose.
Excellent.
Yeah, I didn't hear it there. So I think they just have a clip to say finish him, which they can't play when you're fighting a lady, I guess. And then there's Scorpion's Get Over Here, right? They've got that clip too, but I don't know if they've got any other ones beyond those. Like Raiden's thing that he yells, his gibberish that he yells out when he's doing his Superman maneuver, that's gone from this version. Also, Scorpion actually has two audio clips. He has Get Over Here, but he also has a variant where he yells Come Here. And they don't do Come Here in the Genesis version. Double freeze.
Excellent.
Guy made short work of me there.
Fight!
Also, some of the impact screams and stuff are definitely missing from this version, right? Like when Scorpion's spear lands, there's you should be hearing like an kind of noise that is not present at all. Also, the punching has been replaced with like a huh huh when it should be more like a hi-ya. Other stuff like that.
Fight!
Screwed up that slide repeatedly there. Ah! Cannot pull off that damn slide reliably. Total bum.
Finish him!
There's only room for one Sub-Zero in this town. Fatality flashes. They got the Sub-Zero wins thing. I thought that flashed too, if I noticed that correctly. Yeah, round 1 flashes, but fight doesn't flash. Granted, I know nothing about programming in the 16-bit era, so I have no idea how resource-intensive that would have been, but that seems like one of those little things that would have added some interesting flair to things. Cool. I'm winning the endurance fights here.
Fight!
Got a little carried away there, missed my opportunity for a fatality. Oh well. Pit stage coming up.
Fight!
Ah, that's so close. I was on a pretty good roll there. I thought maybe I had a shot at a double flawless fatality. Ah, keep screwing up that slide. That is killing me. No!
Fight!
Ah, oh well.
Get over
Should have gotten that freeze there. Feeling a little cheated.
Fight!
You know, the soundtrack, they took some liberties and really kind of did their own thing on some of these stages. Obviously, since they couldn't perfectly recreate the arcade music, which is fine. Not too bad though. The Genesis soundtrack, I mean, for being what it is, and I'm playing this. I should say, I should also add that I'm playing this on the Model 2 Genesis. And when I move to the Sega CD version in a little bit here, that's also on a Model 2 Sega CD. The sound is going to be the same on all of those, regardless of what version of the Sega CD you're going to be using. The sound is the same, but I know that's not the case with the Genesis models.
Get over here!
Oh, another little difference here. Shang Tsung's head does not move at all. He doesn't follow the action on this stage in the Genesis. version, and he doesn't clap at the end of the round either. That's another thing that I noticed as a kid when I got home the Sega CD version. Yeah, we'll just see. This will be my last attempt here on the Genesis version to get up the ladder here. If I lose another fight, I'll switch over.
Get over here! Get over here!
This track is kind of interesting. It's got like a kind of mysterious quality to it.
Get over here! Finish him!
Yeah. The fatalities definitely lack the impact. I mean, they're still cool. It was still awesome to be able to do that at home. But having Johnny Cage just go as he gets lit up, not quite the same as like the death curling or the blood curling death screams that they let out in the Sega CD and arcade versions of the game. All right, so let's see if I can win this fight here and make it to Goro.
Get over here! Excellent.
You hear me just hammering on my controller here, mashing buttons. Mash to win.
Get over here!
I'm playing on the Genesis 6-button pad, by the way, if you're wondering.
Excellent.
And that does make a huge difference. In my opinion, it's the only way to play this game. I think using the 3-button pad and using the start button to switch between high punch and low punch and stuff, that is a tough way to play this game.
Get over here! Excellent. Get over here! Get over here!
Okay, so here comes Goro, yes? Yeah, there we go.
Get over here!
Thankfully, he takes a second to gloat, which allows me time to really mess him up. He's gonna knock me out again. There we go. Oh crap! I was out of room. Yeah, this can be a tough fight.
Fight!
Goro's weakness is still jump kicking. But you can goof it up like I did and get too close and get thrown.
Fight! Get over here!
Uh-oh. Ah. Okay, I know I said that was going to be my last attempt. I lied. Now that I'm fighting Goro, I'm seeing this through to the end. I'm going with my man Scorpion. I think I can do it with him.
Fight! Get over here!
Oh yeah, flawless victory on Goro. Some 2,000-year-old champion you are.
Fight!
Okay, yeah, don't stand toe-to-toe. Just get annihilated.
Fight!
Ah! Come on, yes, I know. Break out.
Get over here!
I did not mean to do that. I screwed that up.
Get over here!
Yes! Alright, now on to Shang Tsung, final boss. Moments away from the Genesis version of the ending here. I mean, not that that's super different or anything, just that... just the last fight, I mean.
Get over here!
You bastard.
Get over here!
Excellent. Nice.
Get over here!
Uh-oh.
Get over here!
Got him. Oh, yeah. So in this version, and this is kind of why I said Genesis version of the ending, Shang Tsung should have basically kind of sat there and convulsed for a moment while all of the fighters kind of pop out of his body, and then he, I think, like explodes or vanishes into like a flame or whatever, kind of like he did. But the screen flashes and kind of shakes and stuff, and they had to apparently omit all that from this version. So I noticed that. I was a little anticlimactic, but I was still happy to see the ending at the end of it. So just knowing that all these characters still had their stories and stuff, and the ending screens. So now with this done, I think it's time to switch over to the Sega CD version of the game. So I'm just going to do a quick swap here. And you might hear my Sega CD in the background. The little laser, when it moves back and forth, is pretty loud. Sometimes the microphone picks it up. Old hardware, I guess. I don't know. It's sometimes hard to keep those things in good shape for, what, 25 years? So this version gets started with the kind of a long version of what was very similar to the commercial that would air at the time back in the day, as the game was getting ready to come out. And it's super grainy video, as was most video on Sega CD back then, but this was like even more so because I don't know, I'm just taking a shot in the dark here, but I'm guessing they had a compressed file, and it was all they had for this. Footage there is Liu Kang's fighting Johnny Cage, super, super grainy. I mean, Sega CD games did not look like this, right? They looked way better. But they wanted to have the intro here with the song playing and the game footage and the commercial footage and all that. So, I get it. Back then, when Sega CD games were new, and the CD format in general was new to video games, at least. You just were putting any video on the game into the game that you could. You wanted to. Like, look, man, your cartridges can't do this stuff, right? This is like real video footage. Cartridges can't do this, So, even as grainy as it is, they wanted to put this on there, and I kind of get it. Oh, and there's the ending I'm talking about, actually. There's Shang Tsung with all the fighters popping out of him. I'm guessing, and this is also what's funny about this video here, is that is Super Nintendo footage right there. That's the Super Nintendo version of the game that they keep showing here. So yeah, it's just kind of funny that you're playing a Sega game and it's got like a promo video running, and the footage in that is from the competing Nintendo system. Go figure, huh? This song playing in the background too, the Mortal Kombat. I think it was maybe just a remix of this song. It wasn't exactly this song, I don't think. I can't remember. But like around the time that the movie came out, the Mortal Kombat movies, this would have been like 95, a couple of years after this, that song was on the radio, and it was like a hit for a little while. It had like a hot minute or so where it was like on the top 9 at 9 And if you don't know what Top 9 at 9 is, I guess now nobody listens to the radio anymore. Apparently it's all like, listening to Spotify or whatever, some kind of, digital service, which is fine. But back in the 90s, people listened to the radio, and if you wanted to hear new music and stuff, that was where you found it, there or on MTV. Oh, sweet! This version has the little video clips for the a track mode too here. That's cool. I'd kind of forgotten about that. But anyway, yeah. So Mortal Kombat fever took hold of the country for a little while when the movie came out, and I just thought it was kind of fun and interesting that that song had a good run on the radio for a little while. But anyway, I'm going to get into this version here. I'm looking forward to playing it. You can already see some of the differences here in the track mode. The life bars stand out right away. For example, the names are actually in them instead of on top of them, kind of helping make it look a bit more like the arcade. And of course, you got to be able to hear the difference here. The music is so much better. It's actually the real music from the arcade version. But yeah, I'm going to get into it here. No need to enter the blood code. It just starts with blood in the Sega CD version. I am going to still do the dullard code, though. And let's make sure, yeah, Moon. See, I like that they renamed these two. Before, they were just all flag numbers, and now I at least know Moon is the one that I need for Reptile. I don't know what these other ones do. Dads? I have no idea what Dads does. I don't know what Green does. I don't know what Lives does, or Flag 6. Oh, Turbo. Turbo's interesting. I might want to come back and try that. Didn't remember that that was in here. Oh, at the bottom here, let me point this out really quick. It says first map, the courtyard, right? You can pick the first stages you're going to fight on, but it says map, and I wanted to call that out because this is the first game where I think I ever saw that terminology used. When you think maps, you think like Counter-Strike or Quake or Doom or something like that, right? Like, E1M1 for, the Doom map or something like that. But map being used as a term for stage or level or whatever, like I think this cheat menu in Mortal Kombat, 'cause it's on the Genesis version too. That's the first time I'd ever heard that used like that before. Alright, so right away, all of this sounds just like the arcade. And notice the animations, the idle animations, they're the complete animation. It's not just like a partial. See that? Yeah, much better.
Scorpion.
And they say the name of the character as you pick them, which I love. Which is something the Genesis version didn't do. It didn't have the voice clips announcing the names of the characters. And that's right. This is a this is a game from the mid-90s, early to mid-90s, on CD format. So of course there are some loading times. Oh yes, I don't know if you caught that where it said fight, it flashed though. It had the flashing colors for the word fight.
Get over here!
And yes, all of that sounds so much better. The impact of that spear landing, Scorpion going, or Sub-Zero rather, going, oh! All of that stuff was missing from the Genesis version, so having that in this version was really cool. Really good music, too. Always thought this was a killer soundtrack. Better, smoother animations, too, in general. Like, this version just runs so much better. And yep, much better. The scream there as he's being lit on fire, as it just sells the whole thing so much more than the Genesis version, which just had the "oh" sound. Way better. A little bit of a load there. I'm sure you noticed that before the fatality actually animated out and everything. That was something that I noticed as a kid. It disappointed me a little bit, but the sheer coolness of having all of the sounds being just like they were in the arcade, that outweighed little things like having the second card loading. Plus the action itself, like you can just tell that this plays faster and smoother than the Genesis version. This is actually the I think we bought the Sega Genesis, or sorry, the Sega CD rather, because we knew that Mortal Kombat was coming out on it and that it was going to be a superior version. It wasn't that long after that the other versions that this one came out. I think those came out September. This had to have been, I remember having this like spring the next year. So it wasn't too far long after that that this was available. I had played the living bejesus out of it on the Genesis by that point, but it didn't have all the cool sounds and everything, so it was like kind of like the game was brand new all over.
Finish him.
Love that that stinger that plays there as you do the fatality. That low bong.
Fatality.
You know, these load times really aren't too bad either between the fights. I remember as a kid thinking that this seemed like a long time to wait, which I guess is just a testament to the impatience of being a little kid, being a 13-year-old. Yeah, it sure sounds a million times better than the Genesis version. I remember this coming out and getting a little hammered in the video game magazine circuit. Just like the complaints about the load time and stuff. Boy, they must have just not liked these little hiccups. It doesn't really bother me now. They're so brief, you know? I mean, I guess if you're just used to playing this on the cartridge so much that... you know, any little difference just seemed like so much, but this seems fun to me. This seems better. If you ask me which version would you rather play, Genesis or this, I'm gonna go with this every time, I think.
Test your might.
I like that. They have the crowd cheering in the background. That's just like the arcade. Genesis version, again, not have that. I'm not super familiar with the Super Nintendo version and how it was different. I mean, I read all about it at the time, right? Like, I know what some of the fatalities were and stuff, but I don't know a whole ton about, like, the differences as far as, like, all the little sounds and, shit. I'm double flawless already. All the little sounds and the graphical changes and, like, are the animations complete and all that stuff, I have no idea. So if you hear me talk about something in this version, I say, oh, that wasn't in the Genesis version, and you think, well, it was in the Super Nintendo version. Well, you'll have to forgive me for not knowing about that, because these were the two versions that I grew up on. Stupid Johnny Cage. You're going in the pit for sure. I wanted to fight Reptile. I guess that's not...
Finish him.
So yeah, all the bodies down there and the blood on the spikes and stuff. Definite improvement over the Genesis version where it was just totally clean down there, like it had never seen a body. And as a, I guess, bloodthirsty 13-year-old, I thought that was so cool that they had the bodies down there already and everything. Like, they'd been fighting on that pit bridge for years, and, you know, tons of people had been put down there over the years or whatever. It's one of those little details, I guess, that went a long way for my imagination at the time. Oh, and notice Shang Tsung's head moves. now in the Sega CD version on this stage. Kind of watching the action unfold. And he claps at the end of the round. Kind of a blocky looking weird little clap there, but hey, it's animation. It's something that wasn't in the other version. I honestly don't remember if he clapped like that in the arcade. I'm gonna guess he did, otherwise why would they put that in there? And Kano's gonna beat up here. Yeah, Shang Tsung likes that.
Scorpion wins. Flawless victory, fatality.
So there was my double flawless fatality. I couldn't have it on the pit stage though, no. That would have been too easy. Oh, hey, that's what I was talking about before. The skeleton hanging there, I think where there's the blood dripping off of it, that was gray in the Genesis version. They got that the right color here this time. And then you can see the bones in the foreground here in front of the players, or in front of the characters. Ah. So close. I should have had that one. Also, Raiden, the sound of his electricity, way cooler. Way cooler. Yeah, it's got that really neat sound, whereas the Genesis version, it was just this like weird crackle. Get over here! I want to say there might be more eyes popping up in the background there too. Get over here! Which, speaking of those eyes, I always thought it would be cool if they would use them as part of a stage fatality. Like, you knock guys into the pit and stuff, if there would have been a way to have one of those things come out and grab a guy and you know, bite him in half or something like that.
Scorpion wins.
Because I remember always wondering, like my friends and I talking, like having discussions about what those things were back there. You know? Like, what do you think they look like?
Test your might.
Okay, here we go. Stone, piece of cake. Scorpion's looking pretty yellow there. Alright, mirror match. Oh crap. Should have had that one. That would happen. Got him. Yeah, it's getting a little harder. I think I should be able to beat this though. I want to play through the last two boss fights on this version too. I remember the screen shaking as you get closer to beating the last endurance match, and you'd hear like Goro stomping around, or like to imply that he was getting closer. And I don't remember if it does that in this version or not.
Scorpion wins. Fatality.
Okay, on to the endurance rounds here. probably won't get to fight Reptile, because if I couldn't get a double flawless fatality against one opponent, I doubt I'm going to be able to do it against two. But let's see. Stranger things have happened.
Get over here!
Oh, I'd forgotten about that. That's a little bit of a pause there. Probably has a little something to do with why critics were kind of harsh on this version back then.
Get over here!
Not a big deal though. Pretty minor. Oh crap, I lost. Oh, and you gotta reload, huh? So... yeah, okay, in between rounds it has to totally reload the fight. It's interesting. I've forgotten about that.
Get over here! Get over here!
Crap. Crap. I'm gonna lose. There we go.
Get over here!
Holy crap, I pulled that one off. It's a miracle.
Get over here!
Still win this. Alright. Chip damage. Pulled that one off. Crap. This isn't going well. Getting bodied by Sonya here.
Get over here! Get over here!
And I pulled it off. Alright. Whew. I did not think that one was going to happen. I seriously question if I'm going to be able to get through all these. Although if I switch characters to Sub-Zero, he's the one that I think I'm best with, so maybe he's my best shot. I'll give myself one continue here. If I lose with Scorpion, try again with Sub-Zero. And then if I lose with Sub-Zero, that might be it, but I'm going to try to get to the last boss here. That sucks. I feel like I should have a fireball. Crap. There we go. Felt like he was gonna close in on me, steal that win. Yeah, I gotta say, overall, this is my favorite home version of Mortal Kombat, for sure. It sounds so much like the arcade. I had forgotten just how much it actually nails the sound. I don't really mind the loading. A little bit of loading before fatalities, loading right here in the endurance rounds between characters and stuff. Not a huge deal. That should be it. Alright, Johnny Cage, you've been a nuisance.
Scorpion. Win.
Cool, on to the last one. And it'll be not on the pit stage, so I've definitely blown my shot at fighting Reptile, which is fine. But the last endurance fight always takes place in Goro's lair, so that when you win, Goro can jump down. Oh, I can't get it up there. Ah, shoot, I blew it. But yeah, if I remember right, Goro should be, the screen should shake a little bit. You should kind of hear him roaring around a little bit in the background, and then he jumps down as soon as the fight's over. And I'm wondering if that made it to this version of the game, since it was absent from the Genesis version. Alright, eat it, Kano. Yeah, Raiden's gibberish that he yells being in this version too is a nice improvement over the Genesis version. I missed that gibberish. That's like Raiden's thing, you know? I know he's like the lightning guy or whatever, but like throughout the years, in every Mortal Kombat game, including the ones where he's, you know, crossing over in the DC fighting games and stuff from NetherRealms, if you play Raiden, the one thing that you should be able to count on is hearing him go, there's something like that, right? Some kind of variant of that, because that is just the noise that Raiden makes. And having it just make like a kind of noise in the Genesis version definitely felt like something was missing there. Alright, final round. All comes down to this. So if I'm gonna hear Goro, it's gonna be now.
Get over here!
And I have not heard a single roar or stomp so far. It might just be during the last, the second character. Fuck. Shit! Stupid Raiden. Yeah, I don't think they do the thing where you have Goro stomping around. I would have heard it. Because Raiden was almost dead there. I got close enough. Well, that's too bad. That got left out of this version, but that's okay. Oh. Apparently I was on quite the streak. I wanted to let that music play for a little bit. I always loved that continue music. And that was missing from the Genesis version as well, of course. So hearing that in this version seemed really cool. All of these little details, I'm sure, short of making a list in a notebook somewhere, like I knew every little detail back then that had changed between these versions. Oh, what do we got here? Oh, cool. We got a reptile tease. I thought for a moment maybe the game had frozen. Felt like I got cheated from that freeze there. Should have had that. Okay, got a little over half-life here for the next next fight. Looking good here so far, I think. Wow, can't believe that kept working. I was actually trying to do his slide, and I kept getting it wrong. Well, let's see if I can get lucky again. Pull off another victory here. Again, I guess they must be in like a stun animation there, where no matter what you hit them with, it's not going to fully register. There we go, now I'm in my rhythm. Alright, see you later, Raiden.
Sub-Zero wins.
Yeah, okay, so Goro not interrupting the end of that fight. But here he comes, right? They're gonna drop him down? Yeah, there we go, he just had to load. Oh, he sounds way cooler than he does in the Genesis version too. Flawless. Ooh, good for me. Showing Goro how it's done, apparently. Oh yeah, look at that fight animation on him, or the stance idle animation on Goro. Way better too. More complete. Yeah, I know I was gonna get hit with a fireball there if I tried to freeze him again. These fireballs are so damaging. Yes! Alright, on to Shang Tsung.
Sub-Zero wins.
Final step on the tower here. Nice. Shang Tsung's a nifty looking old dude too. Looks like a, I don't know, he kind of looks like a corpse. He's so old looking. They did such a great job, and I love his, holy crap, wow, look at that. Wow, so when he morphs, I guess it takes a second to load, huh? Oh, wow, yeah, that's tough. That's really tough to kind of work around. I can see now why the magazines back then were harshing on this version. So try and get my fireball off here. Slides don't work on him. There we go. Whew. That was a close one. That's really tough when because he shapeshifts so much when he morphs into somebody else. You might have a move plan that would be best for Shang Tsung, but then suddenly you're fighting Scorpion and that move isn't the best thing anymore. Or like these slides, for example. Sub-Zero's slides don't work at all on Shang Tsung, so like Liu Kang here, if I try to follow that up with a slide here, I might not get it off because he might morph back to his normal form or whatever, like he's doing now. I got him though. Oh yeah, that's quite different from the Yeah, that's not even what happens in the Super Nintendo or arcade version. Beat him. See, I like the better ending music here. That's cool. That's a real pisser though, because if you remember when we were watching the intro for this, and they had the Mortal Kombat commercial thing with the guy in the streets and all that stuff. They showed it, and I called it out. There was that footage of Shang Tsung doing like the convulsing as all of the different fighters were popping out of his body, right? And so to have that in the little intro video and then not have that at the end seems kind of goofy to have missed the mark there. Because I gotta wonder how many kids had the Sega CD version of this game and wondered why you never got to see Shang Tsung do that with all the other fighters popping out of him when you actually played the game. I mean, I get it, right? Because apparently, as the game showed, while he's morphing into the different characters and stuff, you've got to take a second to load each one in, and so it's pausing the action. So I guess it wouldn't have made for a very good climax to like have him just shift into a guy, pause for a couple of seconds, shift into another guy, pause for a couple of seconds, or like have one guy pop out and pause, another guy pops out and pause. I guess I get it, but still, just kind of a bummer that they couldn't have figured out a way to have made that work. But overall, this was a pretty good version of Mortal Kombat, I think. I know now we have access to the arcade version through various means. Sometimes those arcade collections are missing things too, though. I think the last one that I bought on PlayStation 3, I think it has Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3 in it. However, if you play Mortal Kombat 1, one of the stages doesn't have music at all. There might be one or two other little things that it's missing. So it's like nobody's managed to, as far as I can remember, nobody's managed to get like an arcade perfect version home yet after all these freaking years. But this one's good though. This was pretty cool back in the day. I thought it was really neat at the time that I bought it. The sound made all the difference, honestly. And my dad was a bit of an audiophile too back then, so we had these giant Polk Audio and Boston Acoustics speakers set up in the house, where they were each probably like what 3.5 feet maybe, and the sound that came out of them was just awesome. So putting on this version of the game and then getting to hear all that music and stuff come out of those speakers, like that was really something at the time. Okay, so I'm gonna attempt to get a double flawless fatality here on the pit stage so I can go fight Reptile. One down. Let's see if I can get another one. I don't want to cheap out totally and put it on one hit victory. Ah, damn it. Thought for sure I was going to get it. Oh well. If I put it on one hit victory, then the problem is when you fight Reptile, you only have to hit him once and you'll win. And I don't want that. But I will knock him into the pit one more time. Fantastic. Alright, well, I'm going to call it good on this, because I don't know how many attempts it would take me to actually get to fight Reptile, but it could be a lot, and I don't have the patience for that. I got other games to go play, but this has been fun, and I'm really glad for all of you out there who took the time to watch this video and hang with me through this thing all the way to the end. watching me play the two different versions of this. Again, can't be overstated what an impact this made on my youth and also my love for video games too. So with that, thank you very much for hanging out, and we'll catch you next time on My Favorite